All right. What's going on, everybody? Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online, joined by senior team reporter Nick Della Torre. We're going to talk a little bit about Florida's 38-14 homecoming win over Vanderbilt last night at the Swamp. And we're also going to just kind of look ahead a little bit to South Carolina. It's going to be a quick show tonight. Nick's busy. Nick's over at, I was going to say, Albert McKeithen Stadium, Nick, but obviously I'm a little behind the times. You are at the Condren Ballpark watching
Condren Family Ballpark.
Yeah, Condren Family Ballpark. They need more names in that. Over the southwest corner campus, watching what is it, intra-squad baseball game?
Yeah, it's the first day of fall practice. Some schools, like Arkansas, it's a little colder there early, started earlier, but Florida's first day today. So I'm watching Jack Caglione and Brandon Neely pitch just 4 innings. Won't be here for every practice, but it is open if you're in Gainesville and want to come see the baseball team. Bring your own beer.
And I got to give a shout out before we get into this too deep, but a former Gator baseball player was inducted into the UF Athletic Hall of Fame just over the weekend, and a guy I know really well, one of my very good friends from college, and in fact was my roommate for a couple of years, Mark Valdez, an outstanding pitcher, All-American, played a half dozen years in the major leagues, played a few years professionally in Japan as well. So, Mark, congratulations. We're all so proud of you, the pride of Tampa Jesuit. All right, Nick, 38-14 last night over Vanderbilt. What are just some of your takeaways from that game? It didn't start pretty for Florida, but as the game went on, Florida really took control, and by the end of the game, it was a rout.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bad Vanderbilt team, but I've always said it. You beat the teams you're supposed to beat the way you're supposed to beat them. Outside of, 2 big plays, the 85-yard touchdown and the 53-yard reception, Florida held Vanderbilt to 3.1 yards per play. Offensively, you were out 3 key starters in Kingsley Guakin, Austin Barber, and Trevor Etienne. Brother Travis went off in London today. I went into the game, Keith, what if I'm an angry Florida fan, or if I'm a disappointed Florida fan, what could I see Saturday that would change my mind? And I just don't know that, because of the opponent, because it's a home game and a lot of Florida struggles are on the road. I just didn't know that we were going to learn anything too much. I think Florida handled their business. And there's something to be said for that. But if Florida goes on the road and lays another road egg like they have, then it doesn't matter what they did on Saturday. So I like to see the way Montrell Johnson ran. He was hitting defenders, not letting them hit him. He finished runs. He was tough. Trey Smack continues to be very, very good. And then I like a lot what I say from the freshman. Jakeem Jackson gets beat for a 53-yard play, doesn't give up on the play, saves a touchdown, and then they go back after him 2 more times in the red zone. Plays well, plays strong, forces a turnover on downs. Eugene Wilson's a guy who Florida is going to continue to lean on. Arliss Boardingham, a redshirt freshman, gets 2 touchdowns. There's just the guys that are making plays, and I keep saying this over and over again because I think it's important, especially when you get disappointed or angry about this team. The best players on this team have been brought in by Billy Napier, whether that's Ricky Pearsall, Micah Mazuka, the guys they brought in the transfer portal, or the redshirt freshmen and freshmen who were high school signees. So there was always going to be growing pains and lumps when you're leaning on younger players. Specifically, it's just a handful of transfer portal guys, and we can we'll get into the transfer portal talk in the off season. But I'm encouraged by how well the young players are doing. But again, it can all be undone if you go up and look the way you have on the road this week, the way you have all year.
Nick, I thought there were some significant developments, though. You with 2 offensive line starters out, you had some guys step in, including Cam Waits. I thought they performed well. Obviously, Vanderbilt's not one of the top echelon programs in the conference, but by them being able to play, or by them having to play, that allows you to create some more depth and some more competitiveness on the offensive line. With ETN not playing, obviously Montrell Johnson stepped in and played at a high level, but so did Treon Webb, the freshman running back. You had the emergence of a couple of freshman receivers, Eugene Wilson, and then obviously the tight end, Arliss Boardingham. I thought that was significant. What we saw yards after the catch from Boardingham isn't something we've really seen much this year. Getting hit and still moving forward. Yeah, I think you're Nick. I think you might be on mute.
Sorry, yeah, the AC's on here. So
no, that's okay. So I thought those were some significant developments, though.
You hit the nail on the head with Boardingham, and that's we talked. I called him Arliss boarding him in the spring. He just has a different skill set than anyone else in that room has. But Billy Napier pointed out, like, hey, this is a track guy. He played receiver and tight end in high school. There's a lot more to tight end than just, hey, go catch passes and make guys miss, score touchdown. And I think what we saw was at the beginning of the season, it was clear to us that he was the most talented pass catcher in that room, but you have to be able to do more. And as he is gaining the trust, he'll get more opportunities on the field. And when he gets on the field, that's the kind of performance that we saw in the spring and that we saw in the fall. Now, listen, you're going to have to block, and he's been awful blocking this year. And if you can't block, you're not going to play tight end.
Nick, so many times we've seen guys catch the ball this year for Florida. They get hit and they're on the ground,
Yeah.
And what he did after the catch, one play in particular, a short pass over the middle, probably in the 7 to 8 yard range, but then got an extra 6 or 7 yards out of it after contact, making guys miss, flattening guys, running over guys, stiff arming guys. They need more of that. They need more of that. That's just the 6-7 yards of play. Just eventually, as we've seen against the two of the 3 best teams Florida's played, just hasn't cut it. So I thought that was significant. I'd like to still see more out of the defensive line. I thought at times they were pretty good last night, but on a couple of the long a couple of the long throws from Vanderbilt, there wasn't much of a push. Linebackers were fine. Florida's tackling seemed to be much better. Now, obviously, a lot of this has to do, sometimes people say, well, why couldn't we play like that against LSU? Well, Vanderbilt's not LSU. I mean, you have to factor in the opponent. So, I liked, by the way, the secondary 2 starting freshmen last night. I like what the offensive line did, sure, but I can't give them an A because you have to factor in who the opponent was. But I thought that was probably the best game in terms of pass pro and run blocking combined by the Florida offensive line. And then now you throw in the fact that you found a couple more guys, not a couple more guys. I mean, Slaughter had played previously, but Waits. You're creating a little bit of depth, like I said, on the offensive line. So then when you get back to practice Monday through Thursday, because Friday's just, bogus walkthroughs where they don't really do anything, maybe you're a little bit more competitive. Maybe guys are a little bit pushed, a little more pushed. I don't know. We will see. That remains to be seen. But obviously, Nick, I try not to read too much into that game because for a quarter and a half, it wasn't great. And I felt like Florida really took control of the game it wasn't a goal line stand, but the red zone stand where Vanderbilt really missed a guy that was wide open in the end zone. He caught it, but was out. Next play, 4th and goal from, I think, the 4. Florida forced an incomplete pass. And from there, really took control. Again, that was really the key moment of the game. But from that point on, Florida was fairly dominant. Turnovers on downs. Vanderbilt wasn't great on 3rd down. I mean, there were a lot of positives, but like you said, now you have to take that next step. They're 4-0 at home. They're a different team at home, but now you have to go on the road and you have to do something. South Carolina did not play yesterday. They had a chance to kind of get fresh. That is not a great team, but it's a team that, was competitive with North Carolina, was competitive with Georgia for 3 quarters. Not so great against Tennessee, but there is some talent there, Nick. Obviously, their offensive line is not good at all. That should be an advantage theoretically for Florida, but going on the road, that's obviously a difficult place to play because of the environment. They're one of those teams that is significantly more together, difficult to beat at home than on the road. But I thought there were some positive takeaways from Florida. And by the way, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, there was not any special teams blunder that I can recall yesterday. Hey, take what you can get, man.
Yeah, no blunders on special teams. That's huge. I was just looking up while you were talking there. South Carolina 2-0 at home this year. They were 5-2 at home last year. One of those was to number 1 Georgia. So they're a good home team. I've been to Williams-Brice a bunch. Weird stadium, looks like a spaceship, but it gets loud. You're gonna hear Sandstorm a ton. And like, to Billy Napier's credit, he said, hey, it's Like, it's winning on the road is different than winning at home, and especially in our league, it's like, all right, cool, but like you should know that when you take the job, and you got to figure out ways to win on the road. So,
And Nick, it hasn't been that Florida hasn't just lost on the road. Look, they've lost to two good teams on the road this year.
yes,
Utah and Kentucky. It's that they were really not competitive in either game, quite frankly. Let's just be honest. I mean, Utah was up 24-3, put the brakes on the offense, just wanted to get out of there with the W. Kentucky led 23-0 5 minutes into the second quarter. And it was, I mean, the closest Florida got from at that point on was 16 points 2 different times, but you never felt like Florida was really, really, really deep in that game. So how do they be more competitive? How can Florida be more competitive on the road? One thing is stop shooting yourself in the foot with the pre-snap penalties, but that's the next step. I mean, obviously you want to see Florida win, but you win by being competitive. How do they become more competitive on the road? To me, Nick, this seems like just what the doctor ordered, a team that is struggling itself to find its own identity, a team that's got a very weak offensive line. It feels like the timing is right for Florida to finally go on the road and win something. But what do they got to do to turn it around on the road?
Yeah, if you listen to Graham Mertz, it's start fast. And just the scores you mentioned there, Keith, Florida has not started fast. They have procedural penalties. They've had special teams penalties. You finally had a clean special teams game. You've got to start fast on the road. You know, this is going to be an environment that Florida hasn't played in. I've been at both away stadiums. Williams-Brice is louder and bigger than both of those stadiums. So I think you need to have a fast start. You can't shoot yourself in the foot with these penalties. I've said it week after week. Florida's not good enough to beat themselves and beat their opponent. You know, Georgia can probably win a game where they lose the turnover battle and have more penalties than the other team. Florida's just not there yet. So South Carolina does present an opportunity. Like Florida, I think Austin Armstrong's probably licking his chops this week, looking at that offensive line and thinking, man, they've given up 25 sacks in 5 games. We should be able to go get them. And if Florida can go get Spencer Rattler, can you force turnovers? Florida's still not really forcing turnovers at a great clip. So I think getting to Rattler is important. Starting fast is important. You know, you just can't keep playing this sloppy on the road. And I'll ask Billy Napier on Monday, like, have you identified anything as to why your operation can't go on the road?
Yeah, whatever. I don't want to say which one. I always chat politics with my friends, but there's one particular politician, and I always say, if this person, whatever they're thinking, they should probably do the opposite every single time because they have such bad instincts. It's almost getting to that point where you're like, they were so non-competitive in those first 2 road games that you're thinking, do they just need to just do the exact opposite? I mean, I say that not realistically, but it feels that way. But, you know, not even just starting fast on the road. How about just not starting horribly on the road? I think that would be a win. Just being in the game midway through the second quarter. Here's some stats, Nick. Well, and let me point out one other thing. Because Florida fell behind so much in those games, it changed the whole complexion of Florida's offensive game plan. That was it. There went the balance. You know, this actually used to happen to Steve Spurrier, Nick, when they would fall behind. And they didn't fall behind big a lot, but when they did, that was kind of the knock on him at the time in the 90s, that if you could get ahead of Florida early, it would get him out of his rhythm, and he would throw too much. And as much of a passing guru as Steve Spurrier was, he still thrived on balance throughout the bulk of his career at Florida. So anyway, Florida's got to stay in these games early, be competitive going into the second half so it can have that offensive balance because you know, do you want Graham Mertz throwing 33 times when it's just 4-yard pass, 5-yard pass? That's what they want. You're eating up clock and you're not scoring fast. So, you know, stay in the game early, stick with your offense. If you do, or your game plan, if you do fall behind, I think you have to stick with it. They've gotten away from it in those 2 big road losses. I think you got to stick with it.
They're just not built to come from behind. Like this is Graham Mertz threw 36 times. This is the first time in 13 career games where Graham Mertz has won a game where he's been asked to throw 30 or more times. He was 0-12 coming into this.
Incredible, really.
He's just not – I mean, they've got playmakers. Like, I think Gene is going to be really good. Aiden Mizell will be good. Eugene Wilson's already very good. Like, they have playmakers. They're just not there yet. They're not an explosive offense. They run at a molassously molasses slow pace. Like,
Yeah.
if
Nick,
you put it down 14, they're not coming back.
Nick, I think the emergence of Arlis Boardingham is going to really open things up for this offense, though. Now you really have to account for a tight end in the passing game and not just on passes to the flat. Now you're going to be able to attack the center of the field, which then opens up things wide for guys like Ricky Pearsall and Eugene Wilson. I think that's going to add another layer to this offense. That was one of the missing pieces. In today's world of college football, the tight end is one of the most important pieces of the offense. It wasn't always like that. It used to be that you would sometimes just put if you were going to throw to a tight end, you just put a receiver in that spot and let him go wild. But now these are true big-time, big physical athletes that can also get down the field. All right, Nick, Spencer Rattler's stats for the year. He's completing 73% of his passes. That's very good. 1,400 yards in 5 games with a long of 76, 7 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. That's not a ton, but that would be that means you can get to them. You can force turnovers. Yeah. He's been sacked 22 times. Now, what's staggering to me about that is this is not the Statue of Liberty back there. This guy is athletic. This guy can move, and he's still been sacked 22 times. Now, again, I've not watched them that closely. Sometimes it's okay if a guy takes sacks because he's sitting back there waiting for things to open up. You can take a sack here or there because you know you're also going to get some good shots down the field, as opposed to a guy like what Bo Nix used to do, just take off and run before the play could even develop. So, I don't know the whole inner workings of their offense right now, but 22 sacks seems like a lot. It seems like an opportunity for the Florida defensive line, Nick.
It is, and that starts probably inside. I think Jim Martin said that it probably starts with Cam and Caleb inside, works its way out to Tyreek Sapp and Princely Umahielen, and it's an opportunity for Florida to get some turnovers. They have a -4 turnover ratio right now, and listen, there's luck with fumbles, but they've only forced 2 turnovers. They've given up the ball 6 times. I need to see Florida get pressure. Like, if this has to be the worst performing offensive line in the SEC, and if you can look for an advantage on the road, that's one. I think Florida's so deep on the defensive line. I said all along, I don't know that they have any all SEC guys right now, but they run 2-3 deep at almost every position. So if you can rotate guys, keep them fresh, and just go after an offensive line that's really struggled. Now,
yeah.
Did South Carolina make some changes in the off, during the bye week? It's not just, a time to rest and heal up, but they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for a Florida team that's struggling on the road coming in.
All right, if you like what we're doing, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Please throw up some questions right now. We got Nick for about another 12 minutes. He's trying to get some work done, trying to keep an eye on this baseball team in these fall practices. And Nick, here's an interesting thing. Actually, let me also point out $1 right now for 1 month of Gators Online. $1, get your foot in the door. You get a full month of the best team and recruiting coverage, and also just a really fun message board community. So check out gatorsonline.com. Again, 1 month for $1 right now. Rushing, 5 games for South Carolina. 5 games, Nick. They have 435 yards rushing, okay? Now, remember, the kid for Kentucky just had 280 alone against Florida 2 weeks ago. Yeah. For 1 weekend ago, 2 games ago. 435 yards rushing. That is it for South Carolina. They're averaging 2.7 yards a carry. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Let me also throw in this. They have a 75-yard rush. If you take out the 75-yard rush, they're averaging, under 2.5 yards a carry. So they are really not a, dynamic rushing team. So if, that means you can really focus on the pass. So, again, everything, Nick, I hate to say this because you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but Florida's sitting at 4-2 overall, 2-1 in the SEC, hasn't won but 1 road game under Billy Napier in 1.5 seasons. This is just setting up like this is a game they can win, man. This is a game they can win.
I was just about to say, Keith, the way you're building this up and talking about South Carolina is just going to make it worse if Florida loses on Saturday.
Yeah, don't blame me, okay?
And listen, like, everything you're saying makes perfect sense to me. But I'm doubting Thomas. Like, I don't trust Florida on the road. I need to see it.
That's right. You got to see it. It's a leap of faith right now. Billy Napier told the media, you guys, last week that, hey, you guys don't see what's going on in the building. And that's great. And I always think that's a mistake. I think Billy's a smart guy, but I think that's kind of a mistake because that kind of makes it sound like I know more than you do. And I know he doesn't think like that. I think that just came out of his mouth. But fans want to see. They don't really care what's going on in the building. They want to see results. They want to see progress on the field. And look, I think if you go and you win one on the road, forget about who you're playing. I know South Carolina's not great, but I feel like that would really do wonders for this program. Then you get an off week. The coaches are going to be out on the road recruiting the following week. You get all healed up and ready for Georgia. That's obviously going to be a tough game. But then you have the blackout game the week after that. The Jersey blackout game against Arkansas at home. So if you win this week, at worst, this coming week against South Carolina, at worst, you're going to be 5-3 with Arkansas coming to town. Everybody's going to be jacked up about the jerseys. And, I think it's Military Appreciation Week. And so it really sets up well for Florida. Again, a team that's one-dimensional on offense, okay? South Carolina's defense isn't terrible, by the way. So it's still not going to, you don't feel like Florida's going to go score 48 points, obviously. They're still going to have to work for it. But it sets up like a game that Florida really, really, really could win. I don't know. I mean, I don't really,
It's definitely a winnable game.
Because Nick, let me just interrupt you. Because if you don't,
South Carolina last year.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if you don't win this game, I think here's the issue. I think then you're going to say as a fan or a player or a coach, well, geez, man, I mean, Utah and Kentucky, I get it. But if you don't go to South Carolina and you can't win that game, gosh, you still go to LSU. You still got Georgia and Jacksonville. You still got to go to Missouri when it's probably going to be a little chilly outside. I mean, if not this week, then when? Then you're thinking, well, is it going to be next year before they win a significant road game? So it's all setting up for Florida, but they got to go out and do it now. And like you said, just getting off to a decent start is going to be the key. Let's see.
The SEC's been kind of weird. While you look for those comments, the SEC's been kind of weird. Like LSU forgot how to play defense. But they'll score. And they'll score in big chunk plays. And Florida can give up big chunk plays, and we've seen that. For as good as I think the defense has been, like they are susceptible to giving up some chunk plays. So, like, yes, Florida. I think Florida can score against LSU, but like, can you stop LSU also? And what do you look like on the road? Now, if Florida goes to South Carolina and looks the way they have the first two games, then I'll say like, hey, I'm chalking those next two road games up as losses. But like Missouri doesn't look like the bad team I thought Missouri was going to be.
Yeah.
LSU, if that's a night game in Tiger Stadium, good luck. You said it was a tough road environment at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Try doubling that stadium and giving a bunch of LSU Tiger Cajun fans all day to drink. Good luck in that stadium. So I will learn, I think, a lot. This is a huge week for Florida, in my opinion.
I agree. We got a recruiting question in a second. We've got about 7 more minutes with Nick Delatorre. If you like what we're doing, hit the like button, subscribe button, leave a comment. We appreciate everybody stopping and checking out our YouTube channel. But, here's the thing. We're going to get to this recruiting question in a second. Nick, if you don't win this week, you fall to 4-3. You're then playing Georgia. You still have LSU on the road. You still have Arkansas at home, which is very physical and nearly beat Ole Miss last night. You still have Missouri on the road. You still have FSU, which probably will be 11-0 when they show up at the Swamp later in the season. And so if you're thinking if you don't win this game, not only is it, gosh, when are we ever going to win as a program on the road again? You're thinking, is Florida going to have a winning record when this whole season's over with? That really comes into question. I mean, there's no guarantee there's a winning record even if they win this game. All right. But if you don't win it, boy, I mean, I'm talking less than 50%. I think the odds of Florida finishing with a winning record. Actually, let me get back to that LJ McCray question, 5-star defensive lineman. Somebody wanted to know when he's going to have a decision, and I clicked off the question. I'm sorry about that. LJ McCray officially visited Florida State over the weekend. He plays at Daytona Beach, Mainland. I think all indications are that was a successful visit for FSU. He's down to 5: Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Miami, and Georgia. But we think it's really a Florida, Georgia, FSU battle. His birthday is October 18th, and we expect him to have a decision shortly after that. I'd love to make a prediction right now. I mean, if it's today, I think maybe Florida. But there's still some time to go in this recruitment. He's a smart kid. And And he's taking his time. I'm not sure even he knows where he's going to go, but Florida's very much in it. There's no question about it. Deep in this one, I know Georgia has always sort of seen Florida as the team it has to beat to land him. So we'll see. I mean, that's a guy Florida absolutely needs. They only have one true defensive lineman committed at this time. All right, let's get to some of these.
I agree with Tawan there too. You just had it up on the screen. I'll put it back up here. Arkansas, and the big thing for me is Arkansas is big and physical. They will play Florida just like Kentucky did. I don't think they're as good as Kentucky. Also, Florida answers being punched in the mouth at home, and you get Arkansas at home. You know, they've been punched in the mouth twice and haven't handled it on the road. So I do like that game's at home. And I've been talking with some of my friends who are Gator fans. We won't know the kickoff time for that Arkansas game until 2 weeks before. So the week before Georgia during the bye week, we'll find out. But man, I have a weird feeling like Florida's going to get screwed and get a noon kickoff against Arkansas. Like, we've been waiting 30 years to see black jerseys, and it's going to be like a noon SEC network game. Fans are going to have to be out there sweating in their black shirts. Players are going to be sweating at 85 degrees at noon. Florida's lobbying for a night game, obviously.
I got to tell you, Nick, I don't get the whole excitement over the black jerseys. I mean, Miami wore them yesterday, and I thought they looked pitiful. So I don't know.
Adidas is bad with their jerseys.
All right. Question from Harrison Sanchez. Keith and Nick, make a prediction on whether or not Florida lands 5-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton. Well, I just talked to Jordan about 2 hours ago. 5-star offensive tackle from Bradenton. I almost said Manatee. Bradenton IMG Academy officially visited Florida over the weekend. Look, he said it went great. Florida feels like it went great. DJ Lagway, Florida's quarterback commit, also a 5-star, thinks it went great, but he's got a lot of visits to go. I don't think he has any idea where he's going to end up. Alabama was the leader going into this visit. He visited Tennessee the previous weekend. He's going to go back to Tennessee, he says, for an official visit. He still wants to visit Oklahoma. He still wants to visit Ohio State. He may go to a game at Miami, and he's not going to have a decision until December. There's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys in this one, guys. And then you have the NIL factor as well. I cannot make a prediction. I'll say 35 to 40% right now against the field, which isn't terrible. They're in it, but there's a long way to go. All right. Nick, any prediction from you on Jordan Seaton? I'd say no, but there's a long way to go here. Yeah. All right, let's see. Let's get to some more of these comments. I'm trying to think what's that's Miami. Somebody's making fun of the jerseys. Hey, look.
Listen, Keith, you're showing your age.
I just don't get. I don't get.
And younger have been begging for a black jersey. Begging for a black
jersey. And then
jersey.
you get these coaching staffs wearing all black, and I don't get it, man. It's the hottest stadium in the SEC, and the coaching staff thinks that they need to wear black out there. I don't get it, man. Anyway,
they wear it to stand out. And now what I think is going to be funny is because they wear black during regular home games or regular games to stand out. Now you're going to have this like blackout jersey, and all the coaches are going to be like in white.
Or they're going to be wearing white, and they're going to be like, yeah, they're going to say, God, we should have been wearing white the whole time. It's so much more breathable out here. All right, so here's a question. I don't know
on TV.
I don't know what this comment really is referring to, but Kearney makes me think. It's leading me to ask you a question, Nick. You know, looking at Florida's offensive line, Rod Kearney's a young guy that was going to maybe have a role this season. How much has he played so far this season, and what does the future look like for Rod Kearney, who was a big time recruit coming out of the Jacksonville area in this last class, offensive lineman?
Yeah, he has not played in a single game yet. Kearney, I thought it was weird. Kearney played guard in high school. Najee Harris played center in high school. They got to Florida and they flipped. Kearney had, the snap issues in the spring game. Obviously, he had literally only been 15 practices at center. And then you have, a guy like Desmond Watson lining up over you. I think Florida views Rod Kearney as the center of the future, whether that's his redshirt freshman year or redshirt sophomore year. That's the view for him. Like, they're not giving up on him. They don't think he stinks, but he's redshirting this season.
All right, Nick, we're going to let you go in a second, but just your general thoughts going into the South Carolina game. What would be 2 or 3 keys to Florida? I forget about getting off to a good start. I get that, but what are 2 or 3 things Florida has to do to win at South Carolina next week?
Get some turnovers. Like, it probably won't take me long to find it, but I don't remember the last time Florida had a negative turnover ratio. They're -4 on the year. especially when you go on the road, like getting turnovers and getting sacks, turnover on downs. Billy Napier says they include turnover on downs into their turnover ratio. I think that's going to be important. And then, like you said, South Carolina has had no rushing game, which obviously it doesn't help their offensive line. They're one-dimensional if you can't run the ball. So make them one-dimensional. Stop the run. It's probably not hard for you to stop the run, but stop the run. And then pin your ears back and get after Spencer Rattler.
I got 2 quick recruiting questions, Nick, and I'll let you off the hook here. Greedy wants to know, with the new DB being offered, what does that mean with these other guys that Florida's looking at? The new defensive back that Florida offered, it was last Thursday, Gregory Smith of Sumner High School in Riverview, Florida, just outside of Tampa. He visited over the weekend, and he's already set an official visit to return in December. I think Florida's clearly taken the lead in that recruitment. If they continue to push, I think they'll probably land him. He's a safety, so that doesn't really affect Jameer Grimsley. It doesn't affect Zay Mincy. It doesn't affect Jamar Howard. Those guys are all corners. And last question here, Lucas, my man Lucas. Hope you're doing all right, buddy. Any concerns with Xavier Phil-Sami? That's Florida's 5-star safety commit from Texas. He went to the Texas-Oklahoma game on Saturday. Texas offered him as well. LSU still in the mix. Georgia still recruiting him. Georgia would be, to me, one of the teams to watch right now. They have a big need at safety, and they are apparently going to go visit Xavier sometime in the near future. So keep an eye on the Georgia Bulldogs. But as of right now, Florida does apparently feel good. Look, that'll do it for this edition of Sunday Night Live, the Gators Online live show. For Nick Delatorre, I am Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online. Make sure you, again, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, tell everybody about it. We got bigger and better things coming. And also, please leave a comment. And right now, Gators Online is $1 for 1 month of all the best in Gators scoop, intel, overall team coverage, and insight, and the best message board community in Gatorland, Gator Nation, Gator World, Gator everything. That'll do it. Take care, everybody. See you.